Hello folks, this is Brian Davis. You may remember me, all 70 you watched it anyway, from my first Horror Junkies video where I had a little spat going with fellow horror movie YouTuber Moods616, who probably hasn't seen my video yet because I haven't gotten around to telling him. But if you haven't seen this video, um, or that video, which was technically the first Horror Junkies video, but the first official one I'm going to be uploading pretty soon here, because Horror Junkies is usually a thing I do with my brother, Shane, but that one I kind of did by myself just to test the waters a little bit. So okay, with that out of the way, let's start with what this video is going to be about. Today I'm really going to take it to Moods. I'm going to take it to him, and I'm going to take it to him good. I got documents here and files of all the illegal crap he's been doing for the last 5 years. Just kidding. No, this is going to be something a little different, because that's kind of what I want this channel to be. I want it to be a lot of different things, and that's kind of what we're going to do. And without further ado, this weekend, me and my brother Shane, who does the Horror Junkies podcast with me, went to a horror convention in Tampa, Florida. And that horror convention, if you've been to them, you know the routine. You go there, you talk to celebrities, sometimes you get autographs, and a lot of times you buy collectibles because they have vendors there, and they had a lot of DVD vendors and stuff like that. And before I get into that though, leaving Tampa Screams, I stopped by this store named Mojo's to do a little shopping, and I picked up some books at Mojo's, because Mojo's is a store in Tampa. Cool store, by the way, so if you're ever in Tampa, check it out. And they sell like books, music, both CDs and vinyl, DVDs, Blu-rays, and just all kinds of cool stuff. And this time out, since I had already bought DVDs from so many other places, I ended up just buying books this time. But I bought some good ones. This is what I bought. The first thing I bought is something that I didn't even know existed until I saw it there. Now, I had seen other books like this, but this is the first specific one of this I saw, and that is Weird Tales. Pretty cool, huh? And this is the Children of the Bat issue, by the way. And these things are cool because other times they've reprinted old pulp stories, because that's what they are. They're old pulp horror and science fiction stories. And other times that they've reprinted these over the years, they've just done it in like paperback. So you lose a lot of the original illustrations that they had. But this has the stories kind of originally published, so you get all the cool little illustrations and stuff like this. Like, for instance, that's kind of a cool one right there, if you can see that. Pretty neat. And see if we can find another one. Yeah, that one's really cool, actually. Check that out. Like a hooded skeleton ghost, like, chasing after this dude. And yes, these are very, very, very cool, by the way. And I won't be. They actually had another issue there a few weeks, yeah, like a few weeks ago. But somebody bought the other volume or issue, whatever you want to call it, of this, because it's like a book reprint of a magazine. I'm not sure what you call it. We'll just call them volumes. And look at that cover art on that though. For like sexy little girl right there. Yeah, that is excellent. Um, and anyway, like I said, I saw another volume of this there, and a few weeks ago, but somebody bought the other one, so I'm definitely going to be buying more of these in the future since I know they're a thing now. Now that leads me to this. Um, when I said I'd seen other books like that in the past, specifically, I was talking about this one, and this is really cool. I got the Shadow Pulp stories. Look at that. Look at that cover. And this is specifically for Six Men of Evil and the Devil Monsters. Devil Monsters, that's kind of an odd one. And yes, again, this retains the old uh, format of the pulp magazines, except it's in book form. So again, you have the original illustrations. Isn't that cool? And yeah, there's one of the man himself, the Shadow. He's got a gun, or he's got his 45s pointed at a criminal. Look at that. Pretty cool, huh? And yeah, it even shows like the original like magazine covers from back in the day, like because this reprints two Shadow magazines. So you got this one and this one. See, this one is the actual book cover that he used, and this one is presumably for the Devil Monsters, which shows the Shadow squaring off against what looks like dragons, and I think that one's like a pterodactyl. So pretty cool, pretty cool. And then the final book I picked up, and this is really cool too, is Horror Literature, a core collection and reference guide. If you want to read up on your horror literature. And this book, I think, was published in 1981. So it is really, really, really outdated. Point in fact, this book is so old that H.P. Lovecraft is mentioned in this book under the handle of being a modern writer. Which is funny because they actually have a chapter, or whatever you want to call it, a portion of the book devoted to cosmic horror writers, and that's kind of what Lovecraft should have been listed under. Now, obviously, there is no well, I shouldn't say obviously, because you've never seen this book. How would you know? But I was just saying, you could sort of tell by looking at it that it is very much a kind of more traditional, like hardcover type book. And so there's no illustrations, but it is very, very, very thorough. Because like in the classic one on Gothic Romance, it just has like literally, I swear, every Gothic novel ever written is like referenced in this thing. It's pretty impressive. And it just tells you like the main works and the people that wrote them. Like, for instance, here's one for Emma Dawson, who wrote a book called An Interior House, or an Itinerant House. That figures. The first one is a title that's kind of hard to read. It's an itinerant house and other stories. Uh, then Donovan Dick's Tales of Terror, or Dick Donovan's Tales of Terror, I should say. Arthur Conan Doyle, The Black Doctor, and Other Tales of Horror and Mystery. You kind of get the idea. Cool book. Again, look at that cover. That's kind of cool, huh? It's simple but cool. Recommended. And yeah. Now, here is the horror. And now, with the Mojos out of the way, here is everything I picked up from Tampa Screams. I didn't put it in, like, because I picked up DVDs, Blu-rays, and VHS tapes, but I didn't format them that way. They're basically in this bag behind me here, and I'm just going to pull things out and we're going to talk about them. Except this is the only thing I'm doing in order, and I pulled this one out because I'm actually going to be watching this tonight. I'm a bit of a night owl. It's kind of like, it should be about 1:45 in the morning right now. So after I'm done with this, the first thing I'm going to do is like sit down and watch in its entirety Son of Godzilla. Look at that. Look at that. You got Manila on the cover. You got Godzilla. You got that cheesy praying mantis. I don't know his name. This is excellent. And I actually want to talk about Son of Godzilla for a minute. Because when it comes to the original classic Godzilla series, I've heard a lot of people say they think that Godzilla vs. Megalon is like the worst of the series. I disagree with that. I think that this movie and what is it, The Return of Godzilla? Or Godzilla's Revenge, something like that. This movie and that one are actually, I think, worse than Godzilla vs. Megalon. But the thing about these movies is, even as bad as they are, because I mean, how more dumbed down and kid-like can these movies be? You can see Manila right there, right? Sorry about the glare, but there he is. And these movies are a lot of fun, though. Even the bad ones like this are awesome. So yeah, that's Son of Godzilla. And next, we're going to just be randomly pulling out stuff. I don't even know what we're going to grab. So let's just grab it and I'll talk about it. And next is, actually, I'm going to save that one for last. So there is going to be a certain order for it. But, okay. Next is, this I actually got at Mojo's. Appropriately enough, I did get one DVD there because they had this in the bargain bin thing, and this is just too cool because they had it for $3 and I had to get it because this thing's like 4 hours long or something, you know. And it's like, I'm like, 4 hours at $3. That's a pretty good deal. And this is Tailspin Tommy. Look at that. This is one of these old cliffhanger serials. You can see the 12 chapter thing right there, and I love these things. Every time I see the old cliffhanger serials out and about, whether it be on DVD or Blu-ray or VHS, if I don't have it already, I always end up picking them up. These things are like a weakness for me, and I know some people don't like them. They're not taken seriously, but I say the hell with that. These things are fun. And yeah, here we go. Next is, this one excited me a lot because I love cartoons. Actually, I'm a huge cartoon nut. Outside of horror films and maybe smut movies, I do like sexploitation type stuff. Cartoons are like my favorite thing to watch and to collect, and this is really, really cool. This is the complete series of Mighty Mouse, The New Adventures. And yes, this is Ralph Bakshi, the guy who gave us Fire and Ice, Wizards, and all that cool, wacky stuff, doing Mighty Mouse, right? And is every bit as zany, wacky, and goofy as you would think it is. I mean, you only need to look at the back. You got an Elvis balloon and all these goofy shenanigans happening. Look at that stuff. Goofy, goofy, goofy. A lot of fun. And hang on one sec. I just need to adjust the camera if it'll let me. There. Now we can continue. And next is this movie is one I'm really excited about because I grew up watching this movie actually, and this is a movie I didn't have on like any format. So I'm very, very excited to have this, and that is Retribution. Now, for those of you who haven't seen Retribution, it's a late 1980s horror film. It's about this guy who kind of basically becomes possessed by the spirit of a gangster, and the gangster sort of goes around getting revenge on the people who knocked him off, using this guy as kind of like a conduit or whatever. And yeah, very, very, very cool movie if you've ever seen Retribution. If you haven't, I recommend this one. It's really cool. It's very similar actually to a blaxploitation film from the 70s called JD's Revenge. If you've ever seen that, it's very similar to that movie in a lot of ways in terms of like the plot and so yeah, Retribution. First VHS of the haul. Okay, next. This excites me because I actually got the first season of this not too long ago from a great store in Tampa called Viper Video. They sell a lot of like horror and exploitation stuff, but they also sell a lot of weird collectibles like this. And this again goes back into my love of cartoons and like kid stuff geared toward children and stuff like that. And this also ties into like the horror stuff because it has dinosaurs in it. And this is Land of the Lost, and this is specifically the second season of Land of the Lost. And Sid and Marty Krofft, very weird people. You know, they did like the Bugaloos and stuff like that. They did a lot of very, very strange programming. In point in fact, Land of the Lost is one of the more straightforward things that they've done. And that is still weird. Like, for instance, this show is about a family, this guy, his daughter, and his son, and they're out exploring one day, and an earthquake happens, and they get sucked into this tidal wave or something like that, and they end up in this sort of, like, unexplored region of the world where dinosaurs still exist, right? And where it gets weird, though, is for some reason there's aliens there too. I don't know why, but you could see the alien on the back. He's right there. It's like, why are there aliens in this? What does that have to do with dinosaurs and like cavemen? Because there's also like cavemen, because this is one of the many shows where cavemen and dinosaurs are sort of mistakenly thrown into the mix together. Though, are they? Little paranormal stuff you have to think about. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun. And if you like 80s shows and weird stuff, and this is very much recommended. It's awesome. Uh, what's next? Ooh, another thing I like, because I did say I like my cartoons, but another thing I actually like is anime. And of course, me being a horror fan, I like the horror anime, of which there's a lot of very, very good stuff out there. And this is one of the older ones in the mix. On point in fact, it's from the same guy who did Vampire Hunter D, which is one of the sort of trend setting landmark horror DVDs. And this is Demon City Shinjuku. Right there, you can sort of see the cover. And yeah, I definitely recommend this one. This movie I started watching it, I think, on Amazon Prime, because I think they had it on there for a while. Yes, even though I'm a collector, I stream too, even though I think streaming is of the devil. And yeah, this is a very cool anime. I didn't get a chance to watch it all, but now I have a copy of it I can keep and watch forever. So, Demon City Shinjuku, or Shinjuku. Japanese words are hard to pronounce. Demon City Shinjuku. Okay, next, what do we got here? Oh, another VHS tape. And I actually got this one for free because I'd bought in a certain amount from this one vendor's table. And he's just like, you know what? If you see another piece of media in there that's $5 or less, you can just have it for free. So I looked back into his box again, and I seen this in there. And this is like an old vintage VHS tape of John Carpenter's Escape from New York. Now, if you saw the Moods video, all 7 of you that did, you know I sort of have a beef with John Carpenter right now because of those bad new Halloween movies that he did. I don't like those at all. But I still love John Carpenter, and I love old school John Carpenter. And yes, I know he didn't direct the new movies, but he was very involved with them. So, but anyway, I like John Carpenter. I love the old stuff. And this is Escape from New York. You know this one, Snake Plissken, baby. And in fact, you show him on the back there. He's got a gun pointing. Yeah, I'm Snake. Escape from New York. Alright. Next, and aside from one more, this kills it for videotapes today. And this is a very cool one, by the way. And I got this for relatively cheap. I think this was only $10. And this is an old clamshell, because for those of you who are dinosaurs like me, getting back to Land of Lost, for those of you who are dinosaurs like me, you know that Warner Brothers, once upon a time, used to release all their movies into big plastic clamshells like this. And yeah, this is, as you can probably tell already, Horror of Dracula. Again, sorry about the glare. I'm trying to find the best angle for this. Horror of Dracula. Yes. The first movie where Christopher Lee plays Dracula and Peter Cushing plays Van Helsing. This is a classic, and I'm just very happy I got to buy this. you know. And the back is nothing much. If you've seen like these old clamshells, just a couple of pictures. You see on the left there Dracula getting in at the end there. And yeah, this is kind of like very cool though. And like it opens up, you can see the Warner Brother label, the tape's in good shape. And yeah, this was a steal. And they actually had a lot of very cool things there. They had like they even had like beta tapes. And point in fact, I almost bought, even though I do not have a beta player, I've never had a beta player, but they also had in the Warner Brothers clamshell the old original box of Creepshow. And I've always loved that design, so almost as much for more for display reasons than anything else, I came very close to buying that. But I figured, you know what, I'm going to be practical and just buy things I can watch. Because I do have a VCR and I do watch VHS tapes in 2023. Yes, I do. That's a thing. I didn't make it up. Okay, what else do we have in this wacky box? Okay, after this one, I am finished with VHS tapes. This is literally the last of the VHS tapes. And this is some great action exploitation now. And this is one of my favorite actresses, Boom Boom. Though some would call what she does, some would say, well, I wouldn't say what she does acting, but they can bite me. This is Cynthia Rothrock, and the sequel to Thomas Ian Griffin's Excessive Force. This is Force on Force, Excessive Force Part 2. And there's our girl Cynthia Rothrock on the cover. And you can sort of feel something's loose in the tape, but it shouldn't affect the ability to play it. And the cover is kind of beat up, but I got this for cheap. And yeah, here you go. You see the baddie on the back there, I think. Or no, I think that's Cynthia Rothrock again. Cynthia Rothrock with a gun. The image is so faded, I actually couldn't tell who that was for a second there. I thought it was like a terrorist or something, but it's Cynthia Rothrock. And then you see some of the stunts and stuff like that. Yes. Excessive Force. Okay. Now. Ooh, hang on a minute. Loose DVD. And this is another DVD I got for peanuts, actually. And I don't know if this is a region, like a weird region one. It doesn't matter because I have a region-free DVD player. And I need to move Cynthia Rothrock out of the way. But yeah, this is a very cool one. This is kind of like about a kind of like an afterlife these people go to after they die. And it's kind of very much like they're inside a living video game, and they have to track down all these aliens and kill them. And that, of course, is Gantz. This is the complete series of Gantz too, and it's on a weird DVD. It's, as you can see, it's got like Asian writing and stuff like that. But like I said, I have a region-free player anyway, so if it doesn't play on mine, I got that covered. This is a very, very good, very violent anime. I don't know if any of you out there see it, or even if you like anime, though a lot of people do nowadays. I like anime. I even like hentai. And I have several hentai, actually, but I'm not showing them today. Anyway, that's Gantz. Okay, what do we got next here? Now we're really getting into smut. See, I told you I like the sexploitation smut stuff. And this is kind of like a European smut film. It's supposed to be softcore, actually, but it's kind of, I guess it's borderline hardcore. And I haven't seen this movie before, so I can't really talk about this one. But I guess, well, hang on a minute, I'll show it to you. That's erotic blackmail. You can see that. Sorry about the glare again. And yeah, this movie is about this couple that are like swingers. So what they do is they develop a sort of scheme, right? To essentially have sex with all these other people and then like use that as a means to blackmail them. And so that's kind of what they set about doing. And like I've said, I've never seen this movie, and I think I'm safe to show you the back. That's kind of what the back looks like. But like I said, I've never seen this movie. I just kind of took a chance on it because I think I got it for like $10 or something like that. So it's like, that's about what I got Gantz for. That was a good deal on that one because Gantz, you buy that in the store, usually that's like $20, $30, $40, somewhere in there, depending on whether you get DVD or Blu-ray. Yeah. And then I finally got, well, not finally. We are getting towards the end. But speaking of smut, Tokyo Train Girls 4, Young Wife's Desires, Asian smut, or Japanese smut. And this is actually a newer film, I think. It should be. Well, it looks older, but it should be newer. Because I don't think Japanese were making movies like this back in the 70s. I mean, yes, they were making smut films, but I don't think they got into the whole molestation thing till recently. And if you've ever seen a movie like this, they all kind of like basically follow the same plot. And yes, there's both softcore and hardcore variations on this. And the plot is usually, and it's usually like one or three kinds of women, right? It's like you get the schoolgirls, you get the businesswoman types. Well, I should say businesswomen / teachers, your career women, in other words. And you get your sexually frustrated wives. And essentially what happens is they go on a train and they get molested and groped by a bunch of strangers, and then by the end of the movie they kind of basically decide that they like it. It's like literally the same plot like all the time. And these movies kind of like are not for everyone. I can definitely see why some people wouldn't like them, because they'd be like, oh, they promote like sexual assault or whatever, right? But keep in mind they're supposed to be like more of a fantasy type thing, you know. But yeah, that's Tokyo Train Girls, and like I said, I'm pretty sure this is a newer movie, but it does kind of look older on the back. It's strange. I'll have to watch this and let you know. If this does turn out to be older, though, that's actually a heck of a find, because I didn't think they were making like groping movies in the 70s. I guess it's one of those you learn something new every day kind of deals. Okay, we're getting towards the nitty and gritty, folks, and here is my only Blu-ray that I got. And yes, yes, um, uh, and that is this is a great one though, I promise. The one Blu-ray, we're getting towards the end, it's a great one. And that is, I'm trying to keep a straight face, Canon Films Masters of the Universe, with Dolph Lundgren, his He-Man. Yes, you know what I'm talking about, some canon goodness from the 80s. I love He-Man. I love the cartoon. I love Canon Films. So this is kind of, so even though this didn't quite live up to, as a kid, what I would like to have seen in a He-Man movie, for instance, it takes place on Earth due to budgetary reasons, not Eternia. It doesn't have like Orko in it. It doesn't have like Merman or Trapjaw. The one cool thing about this movie, though, I will say, is it does have some of the lesser characters, like that Blades guy and stuff like that. Because I think if people watch this movie, hang on a minute, before I go any further, before I preface any further, I'm going to actually put my nerd hat on for a minute, which actually kind of looks like a dunce cap. But I'm going to put my nerd hat on and let you know a fact or two, just in case you don't know or whatever. Or I'm just saying, like, to people who didn't know back in the day, it might just seem like this movie's guilty of basically incorporating some characters and situations from He-Man and then just making up whatever the hell they want to. And to an extent, they are guilty of that. I mean, in a lot of ways, this seems more like Star Wars if it happened on Earth than it does He-Man. But anyway, though, putting the nerd cap on for a minute, that's not entirely true because, and this is something I didn't know either until I did my research on it, right? It's like if you watch this and you only know a little bit about He-Man, or maybe like what you know about him's only from the cartoons, and you sit down and watch this movie, you're probably going to think, unless you're a kid like I was at the time, because when I watched this movie, I was like 10 years old, and I was just like, wow, it's He-Man. It's a live action movie. It's awesome. I'm kidding, but in any event, what I was going to say is if you only know He-Man from the cartoon and you sit down and watch this movie, you're going to be like, that sucks. They basically just took a few characters from the show and made the rest of it up. And like I said, that's true to a lot of extent, but it's not true actually for some of the some of the characters in this movie. Because like Gildorf, isn't that the little guy's name, Gildorf? Gildorf, Blades, that reptile guy, and people like that. Those guys are actually part of the He-Man lore. Those are not characters that Canon Films made up, which honest and truthfully for the longest time I thought they were. But they actually, like, for instance, there's a lot of like He-Man spin-off stuff, and one of the spin-off things was they did a newspaper strip, point in fact, and the newspaper strip actually outlasted the television show. The thing went on forever. So basically what happened was is one day I was at the bookstore in town here, and I was reading the old He-Man comic strips, and that's where a lot of these characters came from, like Blades and Gildorf and that reptile guy, whatever his name is. And yeah, so they didn't just make it all up, they just kind of made up the whole Earth thing, and they made up like Skeletor having troops that look suspiciously like stormtroopers. They made up the whole thing with the kids. Well, I mean, obviously, if He-Man the cartoon doesn't take place on Earth, then you can't have Courtney Cox and her boyfriend there. You know, they obviously wouldn't be in there. Like the cop character who stays an attorney at the end, he wouldn't be there. But you still do get He-Man, Skeletor, Man at Arms, Teela, Beastman, and Evil Lyn. And I think, oh, and the Sorceress. I think those are the characters you do get from the cartoon, and then the rest are taken from, well, at least the ones that are from Eternia are taken from the comic strip. And like I said, I didn't know that for a long time either, until I actually read some of those. So, yeah, Masters of the Universe. Which is kind of weird, real quick. Actually, one more thing I'm going to say about it. It's kind of weird that they did that real quick, because if you know something about the background of this movie, it's kind of like the way the movie is is because well, one of the reasons. The other reason, obviously, is the tremendous popularity of Star Wars. But the reason why the film is the way the film is because the filmmakers were originally going to do an adaptation of Jack Kirby's The New Gods, right? But what's weird about this movie is if they're incorporating characters from the comic strip and lesser known characters like that, then the writer actually was also up on his He-Man lore, which is kind of strange if you think about it. And anyway, yeah, that's Masters of the Universe. This is one of the most expensive things I actually got at the convention. This was $20, but it was well worth it, I think, because I had a DVD of this, and the DVD was a snapper case, and I do find snapper cases annoying, but I'm fine with them. I know a lot of other people hate them, but the thing is, the DVD was also, I think it was one of those old flipper discs, you know, where you got the full screen or the wide screen and all that. And those DVDs are notorious for like malfunctioning after a while. Well, anyway, my DVD malfunctioned after a while. So unfortunately, I lost the DVD, but I grabbed the Blu-ray, which is fucking awesome. I love Masters of the Universe. And then there on the back, we forgot to show the back, there's Frank Langella, the ham that he is, as Skeletor. And I still prefer the guy from the cartoon, but he's pretty good as Skeletor. But the guy from the cartoon just has that awesome voice. I got you now, He-Man. That guy's just awesome. Then right there, you got Courtney Cox and her boyfriend. And then, of course, you got He-Man, played by the man, Dolph Lundgren. And I actually know that Dolph Lundgren is personally not a fan of this movie. I just want to say to him, Dolph, I love you, but you're wrong. That's a little rib on Joe Bob Briggs, by the way. He said that to Stephen King about Chuck Connors in Tourist Trap, I think it was. And now here's the granddaddy. This is the most expensive thing I picked up, and I'm very excited about this. And yeah, I couldn't believe I actually got this for the price I got it at. So yeah, pretty awesome. And that is well, real quick, when I showed that Tokyo Train Girls movie, I sort of explained that it wasn't for all taste. Well, this isn't for all taste either, but it's awesome. And that is the Faces of Death series from Gorgon Video. Yes. Yes. This has parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oh, yeah. and, and this actually also comes with Faces of Death, Fact or Fiction, and The Worst of Faces of Death, which is another couple of VHS uh, um, VHSs that they released back in the day. And yes, um, it's kind of like other people have said about these movies. They're not for everyone's taste, as I said, but there are few things, if you're a certain age, that will take you back to the glory days of the old video stores more than the Faces of Death movies, because you actually uh because most people in my age groups, at least the ones that I know do videos like this, they say one of the things they really remember is seeing these movies in the video store back in the day. And they do have kind of like a weird sort of nostalgia, I guess, you know? And I don't know if their memory is because they had awesome cover art, which they did. You can see part of it right there. They always had like bleeding, almost like Grim Reaper type skeletons and stuff like that on the covers. And there you see like a snake going through one of their eyes right there, which is pretty awesome. Speaking of which, I have a couple of videos I'm going to be uploading of a corn snake I was looking after recently, and I'm going to do that at some point too. Because yeah, we'll even throw animal stuff on here. Because like I said, I like to do different things. And yeah. Anyway, this is awesome though. I got this for $40, and like I said, I've seen it go for much more. There's one guy at Spooky Empire convention, which is usually in Orlando, though sometimes they do it in Tampa, and he was selling it for like 70. So this thing goes for a lot of money, and to get it for like $40 was a good deal. And especially because even though they released the first one on Blu-ray, I don't think the others have received Blu-ray releases yet. I don't think they did. And anyway, though, I was going to say, because there's a couple things I want to say about the Faces of Death series before we call it a day, because this thing's already going on like close to 50 minutes here. So, the two things I want to say is, for one, I wanted to say that, getting back to what I was saying about the nostalgia, is I don't know if it's you really remember these in the video store. I don't know if it's because the awesome cover art, like I just mentioned, or just because these movies were so notorious. They had such a reputation for being shocking. Um, but for some reason, if you're a kid and you really remember them, uh, you you really remember them. If I was going to say, if you're a kid and you went to the video stores and they had these there, you really remember seeing those there. And everybody, I think, has their own memories about Faces of Death. The one I always talk about to my brother about is I remember going to Video Shack back in the day when I lived in Michigan. Now I live in Florida, but back in the day, I lived in Michigan, and there was this video store. I lived in a small town called Lake City, Michigan. Shout out. And there's this cool video store there, the mom and pop stores, which I think are the best ones, called Video Shack. And by the way, rest in peace, Video Shack. It's no longer there because of the damn streaming, damn it to hell. And anyway, um, yeah. Anyway, I used to go rent movies there all the time, right? And they knew who I was, and they knew the sorts of movies I liked, because even back then I sort of liked horror films and stuff like that. So the two sisters that ran the place got to know me really well. In fact, I sort of, through the years, I sort of became almost like an unofficial, off the clock, like third employee there, because I did a lot of like volunteer work there, right? Because they couldn't like hire me. And point in fact, they actually told me one time, they said, Brian, we can't hire you because we don't have money to pay you, because they were barely just scraping by, so they had to do all the work there themselves, except for when I volunteered. But they said if they ever were to hire anyone, I would have been the person they would have hired, which is just awesome. That's an awesome thing to say. But anyway, my memory of Faces of Death, this is the one I talk about a lot, is I would go to the video store back in the day, and I would rent all these horror films and stuff. And like I said, the sisters knew who I was, so even though I was a kid, they would let me rent stuff like a lot more extreme than your average kid would probably rent from there. Like, they let me rent like Last House on the Left, and gory slasher films like Madman and stuff like that, and it wasn't really a problem at all, right? Except there are two things they wouldn't let me rent from there. When Video Shack first came in, and this was something they got rid of later because I guess they're trying to become a little more legitimate, they had an adult section there. And they wouldn't let me rent from the adult section, even though I did see porn when I was a kid, but that's maybe another video I'll get into for another day. And people will watch this and will think, that's why he's into the perverted stuff. That makes sense. Sort of. But, and the other one were shockumentaries like Faces of Death. The two sisters just absolutely drew the line on this. So how I handled this situation was, after a while, I kind of turned it into a game. And by the way, I will say I did end up watching these movies later when I was like 14, 15, because of course, like, friends rented them and my older brother rented them and stuff like that. So I did get to see them. But anyway, so what I would do when I was like 10, 11 years old is I'd turn it into a game. And I'd go down there every once in a while, and I'd rent movies, or sometimes I'd just look around. And on certain days when I was getting real bored, I'd walk up to the counter, I'd strut up there like I was cool, and I'd be like, hey, I see that Faces of Death, those Faces of Death movies are in. Then they'd be like, you can't rent them, Brian. Because they actually smoked a lot. So the two sisters kind of sounded like Marge's two sisters from The Simpsons. So they'd be like, you can't rent that, Brian. But I'd try every now and then, and I just never able to. Anyway, the other thing I'm going to say real quick, for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure you all do, because if you're a certain age, you remember these movies. Um, uh, the um, these movies, right, were notorious for when I was growing up because they allegedly showed real death scenes in the films. And that's not 100% true. Surprise, surprise. And it as it turns out, I guess, to make a long story short, and I think this is true of a lot of these so-called shockumentary films, because they did other ones like Inhumanities, which they also had at Video Shack, The Many Faces of Death. I think they had a couple of those at Video Shack too, and just like so many others. But but I guess you can lump the scenes that they show in these movies into three categories, or at least this is how I had it explained to me, right? And they would either be real death scenes, i.e., suicides or animal attacks or something that somebody would actually get on film, assassinations, political assassinations. They would be completely, and so we got real death scenes. The second one would be manufactured scenes. These would be scenes that were completely manufactured. Now, sometimes they were based on things that actually happened. Like, for instance, there is a scene in one of them that shows people in this fancy restaurant in, like, Thailand or some exotic place like that. And there's, like, this thing, I guess, at the restaurant there where if you pay a certain amount of money, for dessert, you get to have monkey brains. Yes, and to make too point of make too fine a point of it, not to make too fine a point of it, because this video is long enough anyway. You'd pay them a certain amount of money, and not only could you eat monkey brains, but you could actually kill the monkey yourself, right? So there's a scene where they do that, and that scene was completely manufactured. The practice, I guess, is real, maybe. In that particular restaurant, maybe. But that scene was completely made up. Fake monkeys, effects, the whole deal. And then the third category, I guess, would be like kind of a combination of the first two, right? And that would be like they would do real scenes of death, but they would splice it in with recreations that were, because you know what I mean. It's kind of like say with the suicide, like a guy jumps off a building. They would go to the same building, get a guy who looks similar to the guy in the video, have him like lay face down on the pavement, and have the effects guy come in and do these elaborate gore makeups. And if you do it right, essentially, and you edit it right, essentially what it looks like is it looks like the guy jumps off the bridge, which he actually did, but then he's lying on the ground with his brain splattered all over the place. And that part of it's actually manufactured. But like I said, if you splice it right and you shoot it right, you can actually get away with the illusion of it being the guy, right? And so that was kind of the way they did it. Manufactured, real, and then a combination of the two. So basically these movies were just scenes like that. A bunch of random scenes of death, and they were narrated by this doctor. Well, he's supposed to be a doctor, and he's usually named Dr. Gore or something like that. And the actor that you get to play the doctors in these movies is usually like the biggest ham in the world. So even these movies, I guess, are kind of tasteless in a way. They're also kind of cheesy in a weird sort of way. And they're just, like I said, they're really, really, really nostalgic for anybody who grew up during that era. And as I said in my first Horror Junkies, which uh well, I should say the first official Horror Junkies. That'll be Horror Junkies #1. The one where I call out moods is Horror Junkies #0. Well, I don't actually call them out. I just have a disagreement with them. And I anyway, in part one, #1, I actually say something to the effect of I like fucked up stuff, and I do. I mean, it's not like the only thing I ever watch, and I do like all other things besides that. But I do like fucked up shit, and so yeah, this would be up my alley anyway. But I do have a very nostalgic connection to these movies, and I'm very, very glad to have these because I've been looking to get these on DVD forever, and finding them at a good price was just very, very, very difficult. And there's nothing fancy on the back, by the way. It just tells you what's in them and stuff like that. And since they're all the same thing, I don't really know why they went this route with the back, because I'm presuming, yeah, they break down and they give you specifics of what what is in each volume, and I don't really know why they did that, because it's all really kind of like the same anyway. Now I guess you do need to kind of genuine uh specific descriptions, I guess, maybe, like of specific things. Like, for instance, volume 3 has the infamous scene where the guy parachutes in the alligator pit, which is which is like it's really cheesy. Um, that scene is really nostalgic, by the way, because I remember watching that scene when I was like 14 and being like, wow. But yeah, for some reason, they actually tell you what each volume entitles, even though they're all kind of like just the same thing, only the scenes are a little different. So, anyway, if pseudo real scenes of death narrated by a very, very hammy actor pretending to be a doctor are kind of your cup of tea, Faces of Death is definitely the way to go. If it's not, you should probably stay away from them. But I'm very happy to have this after many years of searching, and yeah. Well, that's my pickup from Tampa Screams. Overall, I would recommend the convention. Now, I didn't get any autographs because I only get those every now and then. I got Elvira's autograph, I got Joe Bob Briggs's autograph, and I got Rico Browning's autograph at other conventions, and who sadly passed recently. But I didn't get any from this one. I did meet a few celebrities. I met J.R. Bookwalter, the guy who directed Deadbeat at Dawn. He is a super nice guy, and I talked to him forever about movies. And I also met Camille Keaton, the I Spit on Your Grave lady, who's really nice too. And her and my brother actually kind of had a moment, and then he hugged. And then, of course, when she gave my brother a hug, she's like, I suppose you want to, I gotta hug you now. And I was like, yeah, you kind of do, actually. So yes, I actually got a hug from Jenny Hills, which is pretty damn cool. And this is Brian Davis for Horror Junkies, signing off. Peace. Yeah. Die. I don't know what to say. See you next time.